What's going on, y'all? I hope everybody's doing good. Today we're going to be talking about how to be more effective while using a jerkbait. Because being effective with a jerkbait is something that's going to be useful year-round. Right now when I'm making this video, it's early December, and jerkbaiting is a fantastic thing to do during wintertime months, but using a jerkbait effectively can be one of the best baits for year-round bass fishing. It's going to catch bass in rivers, bigger lakes, smaller ponds, you name it. So being effective with a jerkbait is definitely one of the best, I guess you could say, tools to have in your arsenal when you're out fishing. The technique of jerkbaiting is definitely something that needs to be one of your most effective and useful almost backup plans for year-round. So I'm gonna share with y'all how I think you can be more effective with the jerkbait. I'm gonna be using a 6 cents provoke as the example. The biggest mistake I see many people doing is gonna be being too obnoxious with it. When I say that is, I guess people see the name jerkbait and just think you gotta jerk the rod in almost a fashion like you're setting the hook. That's not what you're meant to do. And what I'm talking about is I've seen people go out there tying a jerkbait and then they're just sitting there just absolutely ripping that bait. That causes almost unnatural representations by that bait under the water, and that's not oftentimes going to get you the most bites. So instead of doing that long, almost setting the hook type of jerk, all you got to do is just slightly tap that rod and it's going to do everything it needs to do, and it's going to look natural under the water. Just little taps. You don't have to move that rod tip much at all, and keeping that jerk in motion simplistic, it's going to keep that bait more natural, and it's going to get you more bites. All right, moving on. Another thing many people make mistakes is back to the retrieves, is not slowing down. A lot of people will see a bill and be like, oh, it's kind of like a jerk, not a jerk bait, because it is a jerk bait. People may think it's like a crankbait and they'll jerk it, but they will go so fast. Yes, that does work, but in my eyes, to be more effective, you really need to slow down with a jerkbait, meaning do those slight taps, but incorporate a pause. One of the best retrieves you can do is just tap, tap, pause, and then let that bait sit there. It will either suspend or slowly rise. Either's perfect, but then just do it again. Just jerk, jerk, pause, jerk, jerk, pause. That's one really big factor when using a jerkbait, is making sure you allow that bait to pause, because during a pause while you're throwing a jerkbait, it's going to be one of the times where you're getting most of your bites, because you'll jerk it twice with a fish right behind it. Sometimes its nose is right on it, but then if you stop that bait, all the fish's momentum is going to take its face straight into that jerkbait and it's going to bite it. Another kind of retrieve you can do other than the jerk, jerk, pause is give it a jerk, jerk, slight pause, and then one single jerk, and then a longer pause. So what that's going to look like is jerk, jerk, slight pause, jerk, and then a longer pause, and then do it again. What that one's going to do is, yes, you get that jerk, jerk, and then the slight pause where fish may come at it, but if they're not yet committed and they're still on it when you have that slight pause, if you jerk it once, that's going to be a little bit different than that jerk, jerk, and that's going to cause a reaction strike and going to get you some more bites. So that's kind of the two main retrieves I'm doing that seem to be most effective for me. But the biggest thing with retrieving a jerkbait is make sure you incorporate some pauses. Yes, it's not always needed to pause, because sometimes those bass are going to be feeding up, they're going to be aggressive, and they want to move. But just slow it down sometimes. You don't have to do a big jerk, just a little jerk, and make sure you incorporate some pauses. So those are the two main things when it comes to retrieving a jerkbait that can make you be a little bit more better. You just gotta have the self-control to slow that bait down and not overly aggressive jerk that bait. Another thing that can make you more effective with the jerk bait is rod, reel, line. The biggest factor of those three being the line. Right now, my favorite to throw jerk baits, whether that's a deep diving jerk bait, shallow diving jerk bait, it's going to be medium fast action. This one here, the reel's got about a 7.5 to 1 gear ratio. For me, that's perfect. Some people may want faster, some people may want slower, but I do not recommend faster than a 7.5 when fishing a jerk bait, because like I said earlier when I was talking about how to be better with those retrieves, you gotta slow this bait down. So if you get a gear ratio that's too fast, you're gonna outrun your bait, and it's not gonna look the most natural. So just that lighter rod though is gonna allow that rod tip to bend a little bit more when you jerk, causing it to be once again more natural. That's why you don't need to do those giant almost hook set level jerks. Just two little pops and that's plenty, because ideally you're throwing it on a lighter rod and that rod tip's gonna do almost all of it for you. And when I say line's gonna be the biggest factor of rod, reel, and line, I don't lie about that, because right now my favorite to be throwing a jerk bait on is going to be 12-pound fluorocarbon. Something about it, I don't know, I have success with it, but the heavier the line, it's not going to dive as deep. For example, like I said, I'm using a provoke as a right now to show y'all. It's diving about 5 to 6 foot right now with the medium rod, 12-pound line, 7.5 gear ratio. Say I'm throwing it same exact combo, but 15-pound line, it may only be going 4 foot. So the heavier the line, thicker diameter, it's not going to dive as deep. And in contrast, the thinner the line, ultimately the lighter the line, the deeper it's going to dive and the more erratic that motion's going to be. So throwing a jerk bait on kind of lighter braid is oftentimes going to be one of the best, but I personally like throwing it on 12-pound fluorocarbon. But putting this bait on like 10-pound braid, you can do even less of a jerk when you work that bait, and it's going to move even more, it's going to look even more natural, and it's going to get you bites. But 12-pound fluorocarbon, 10-pound fluorocarbon, whatever line you choose, a jerk bait's going to still be very effective if you throw it the right way, meaning you don't be too obnoxious with it. Another thing to consider in being more effective with the jerk bait is kind of going back to the line is the depth you're using. When I throw a jerk bait, I don't always worry about how deep I'm sitting in. I look for the bait, and if the bait's not there, then I'll look at how deep I'm sitting in. Right now I'm sitting in 8 foot of water, and I'm throwing one that goes 5 to 6 foot. That's another thing, when talking about depth. Some people, when they use crankbaits, they want that bait to be banging up against that bottom. You don't want that always. Sometimes it does work, but most of the time you do not want that with a jerkbait. What you usually want with a jerkbait is, for example, like I said, I'm an 8 foot throwing a jerkbait that goes 5 to 6. You want that jerkbait to be higher in the water column than those bass. So when you pause it, those bass will look up and come hit it on the bottom side. So say I'm fishing 15 foot, I'll change up to a jerkbait that goes about 11 foot like the Strike King one. But the biggest thing when it comes to depth is don't worry about it too much, because those bass will come from a long way if they see that jerkbait. I've had bass come from over 20 foot away before just to hit a jerkbait chilling in 5 foot of water. So depth is something to think about, but not to be your main worry. And sometimes not only can you throw the 6 foot one in 8 foot of water, I've tied on the Strike King jerkbait and thrown it in 8 foot before, absolutely digging it into the bottom. But that's something you have to play around, because like I said, that's oftentimes not the case. You're going to want it to be a little bit higher in the water column than those bass. Okay, another thing to think about, and this is probably going to be my last tip to be more effective, is going to be your colors. When I'm picking a color for a jerkbait, I always try to match the hatch. I don't try to go too obnoxious, try to match the hatch. Let's see if I can set my rod down and show y'all real quick. I got two different ones. Yes, they're different colors, but both of them have this dot on it. The shad in this lake have a very distinct dot, and that's something that's matching the hatch. So yes, color can play a factor. I'm not throwing this one right now because it's not the most match the hatch, but this one, for example, does really well on this lake because the shad have a darker back and have that dot. So that's something to think about when you are throwing jerk baits, is what did the shad look like? Because that's something, a jerk bait being so almost finesse in a way it is, you want it to match the hatch so that way it doesn't overly seem out of the ordinary for those bass, that so the bass can come pick up an easy meal. But that's pretty much it. I'll go over it again real fast right here at the end. First thing, don't be too aggressive with those jerks. Just all you need is just a little one. Those retrieves incorporate pause, whether that's a jerk pause or a jerk slight pause, jerk longer pause. That's all you need. And then think about what combo you're throwing it on. I recommend a medium with a 7.5 to 1 gear ratio. It just seems to work the absolute best for me. I can cast these jerk baits far. They work the way I want them to work, and they catch plenty of fish. Line, try to stay on the thinner side. I don't know if I would throw mono because it's got that stretch in it. So that's just something to think about when you're throwing a jerk bait. And then try to match the hatch. That's the last thing I got for y'all, is because that's going to be the most effective. Is if it looks normal to those bass, they're going to eat it. So just think about what colors you're throwing, how you're throwing it, what depth you're throwing it. And all of these tips I just shared with y'all, if you go put them to use, you will catch fish on a jerkbait, whether that's in the winter, spring, summer, you name it. A jerkbait is something that's going to be good year-round, just because how natural it is, and how just overly effective that bait is if you use it correctly. So just keep it simple. You don't have to be obnoxious with a jerkbait, and you will catch fish. That's kind of all I got for y'all. So if this video helped, please hit that thumbs up button. If you got any questions about this topic, please leave down in the comments and I will get back to you with an answer. But thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe for more, and I'll see y'all next time.